Hi, this is Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today, we have an exciting comparison of two blue world time chronographs. I knew when I saw the 2018 Polaris Chronograph World Time at SIHH 2018 that it reminded me of another blue world time chronograph. Sure enough, I was at Basel in 2016 when Patek launched its 5930G001 world time chronograph. These are timepieces from different sides of the high horology solar system, and yet they perform the same essential functions with a similar aesthetic. This is begging a David and Goliath apples to oranges comparison. Let's start with the newcomer, Jaeger-LeCoultre. 10 years since the tribute to Polaris, 50 years since the definitive 1968 Polaris diving alarm, Polaris has now become a full watch line at JLC, and this is the flagship. 44 millimeters in grade 5 titanium. The watch wears much more compact than that. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you can see that it's only 13 millimeters thick. The lugs are nicely tapered and curved. The watch really does arc around the wrist, and lug to lug, it's 50.3 millimeters. It has a broad stance between the lugs of 22 millimeters and entirely of titanium and quite slim in profile. There's not a whole lot of watch to weigh you down, so it's an easy one to wear. The hypoallergenic qualities of titanium are also much appreciated here. The strap is thick cut. You can see sheer-sided brown calfskin with a monotone stitch, a more natural calfskin tone on the underside. Pull-tab spring bar is now being used across the range in JLC. This is the company's 4th generation deployant clasp. It's a combination of stainless steel and titanium, and the watch features a push-button release, so you can release the strap from the case using the tabs, and you can release the clasp from the strap using this push button. Double folding, quite secure, hypoallergenic like everything else, and being curved on the underside, it will get along with your wrist. The watch is simple of finish. It's designed to recall the original Polaris, which was thick because of the domed resonator caseback for the alarm and the enormous plexiglass, but it actually had a thin mid-case, and that's recapped here with similar lug profiles with slightly less dramatic bevels. Most of the case is in satin. There is some polish used for accenting. There is an adjuster for the world time reference ring at 10 o'clock, and as you can see, it can be moved in both directions. Vintage-inspired lozenge or rectangular chronograph pushers on the crown side, and the watch has an extraordinary dial. It's metallic blue at the center. Let me relieve this watch of my fingerprints, but it's metallic blue at the center. It's a granular blue about the hour track, all applique indices as well as double Arabics at 12 and 6. You can see there's a reference ring that's nicely dished and sloped outboard with all of the reference cities, and you can see the wedge index next to the cities that used summer and standard time, so it's nice to be able to see that at a glance. A little bit of red, that's used effectively, red, white, and blue being the 3 dominant colors of the dial, and you'll note not only is it nicely dished, but it has several layers straight down to the counters of the twin register chronograph layout. You will note that there is a shaded glass or sapphire panel that divides the day and the night portions of the 24-hour reference ring, and that's one of the distinctive traditions of JLC World Time watches since the 2000s. It looks cool in person and adds another glistening, shimmering surface to this dial composition. Your reference city goes at 6 o'clock, and of course when you set everything in sync, everything moves in sync, so you can judge the time in the 24 principal time zones of the world. You have a chronograph with a vertical clutch and a column wheel, powered by the for the first time visible JLC 750 family of chronographs. It's never been used with a display case back on JLC watches. 37 joules automatic winding, twin mainspring barrels, 65-hour power reserve, 28.8 beat rate. You can see it as a free sprung balance. It features hacking seconds. You can actually see the column wheel, and it has a vertical clutch for smooth engagement to the chronograph, as well as the ability to continuously run the chronograph without hazard. 100 meters water resistant. Now, jumping to the relative veteran, released only 2 years prior, this is Patek Philippe's 5930G World Time Chronograph. As you can see, it is a smaller watch overall, but it's heftier on the wrist, entirely in white gold. The timepiece doesn't look quite as massive as the Polaris, but in fact it is more so. 39.5 millimeters in diameter. The watch is a comparable 13 millimeters thick, but it appears a bit more squat because it is a smaller watch side to side. The aspect ratio makes it appear thicker. Strong lugs stepped out from the case, and lug-to-lug 48 millimeters, so a bit narrower across the wrist, though a nice wide 21 millimeters. Both of these watches have a handsome wide stance between the lugs. Like the JLC, Patek uses pull tab spring bars. Unlike the JLC, we have blue gator rather than calfskin, and we have a white gold clasp to match a white gold watch. What we don't have is a system for easily and instantly releasing the clasp from the strap. So we can take the strap off, but we can't easily dismount the clasp. The dial is remarkably intricate. There's a lot going on here, and it is something you'll appreciate if you like balance and simplicity, but you're going to have to squint. Reference city's outboard. Patek puts the reference city at 12 o'clock, so I'm in New York. That's my reference city. I'm actually in Philadelphia, East Coast, U.S. time. A guilloche center with a grand doge or barleycorn print. That is the shape you're looking at, billowing out from the center, cut on a rose lathe. It's a bit more handmade, though perhaps less interesting than JLC's dial. White gold hands, white gold indices. There's a mono counter at 6 o'clock. That's your only register. When you stop the chronograph on this watch, it is a rather dead dial, as nothing is obviously moving. You have that 24-hour reference ring, and you actually have a different system for adjusting your reference city. When you change your reference city, you use the pusher system. This was actually developed for Patek by Louis Coutier in the 1950s. He, the inventor of the original world time system. So the watch does all the math for you, whereas with the JLC, you can move the reference ring and the 24-hour ring separately by using a separate crown. Here, everything moves in sync until you pull the crown, and then you set the time manually. I'll demonstrate how that works. And you can see how the time moves without the reference ring turning. Now, the watch does have the ability to effectively reset its date because it has its seconds hand, because it has a flyback system. Though it doesn't have hacking or stop seconds like the JLC, you can always reset the chronograph and use it as your center seconds hand, because the watch does feature a vertical clutch, so you can just leave it running. Like the JLC, there's no additional hazard to the movement, and you will want to use this effectively as your zero reset seconds system, because the watch, frankly, doesn't have any constant seconds display. Now, the watch with a movement that fills its case back and is actually worthy of a display case back, adjusted in 6 positions. This is the CH28 520HU. HU for Heure Universelle, a world time automatic, 50 to 55 hour power reserve, unidirectional winding with ceramic bearings like the JLC, free sprung balance like the JLC, 4 Hz or 28.8 beat rate like the JLC. What sets this one apart is that it has the flyback capability, it's adjusted in 6 positions, and thanks to the silicone hairspring, which is robustly anti-magnetic in the way that the JLC isn't, and the Patek Philippe seal, which describes a specific factory-rated precision. This one comes from the factory, guaranteed to run -3+2. JLC's master 1000 hours chronometry test is severe, but I know the tolerances are not as precise as -3+2 per day. So this watch is on a different plane. It is a column wheel and vertical clutch movement, so you have those refinements, and it's also a beautifully finished movement that is visibly the correct size for the case, and you don't feel like you're forcing it here. The JLC has a movement that doesn't necessarily look beautiful, whereas this clearly is, and it rewards close examination with a loop. And once again, you have that fun flyback functionality that I just happen to adore. I could do that all day. Now, advantages. Let's start with the watch we've just described. This costs $70,710 to buy new, $64,000 to $67,000 pre-owned, and it's worth every penny. You get that for which you pay, right down to the gold details of the dial and the true rose lathe cut center dial, the finishing on the movement, and the guarantee of chronometry from the factory. The timepiece only has 30-meter water resistance, so that's not going to be in this one's corner, but discretion because of sizing, finish, and I would even say the flyback chronograph have to be considered trump cards of this one. Deft case styling that is far more interesting than what you get on the JLC, especially with these nicely beveled and stepped out lugs. A cleaner dial that's easier to read at a glance because the dial is less cluttered, and a clever world time adjuster system that effectively does all the travel math for you. Finally, precision, silicone hairspring, 6-position adjustment, all of those are in favor of this watch. And again, that caliber is just sized for this case. Now the JLC, lighter on the wrist, more water resistant at 100 meters, more legible if we're talking strictly time, day or night, because this also wins the loom shot. 65-hour power reserve versus best case scenario 55 with the Patek, true hacking or stop seconds, greater dial depth, and a more interesting array of textures and blues. This one also gives you a strap release system and a clasp release system. When you have one, you should have the other. And the watch is lighter on the wrist and easier to wear in spite of being a bigger timepiece. Finally, values on its size. Priced as $14,100 new, $11,000 to $12,000 pre-owned. Given the choice between the two, I'm going with the JLC, but there is no wrong answer. I'm going with dial depth, dial luster, and versatility as a water-resistant watch. You let me know which one you prefer in the comments below. Okay, JLC Polaris World Time and Patek Philippe 5930G. No competition when the lights go down.